There is Thor's hammer, there is Excalibur, and there is the spear of Phinehas. The story of Phinehas and his spear is unlike any other story you have heard. If you want to know who Phinehas was, the close call redemption a thrust of his spear brought, and how much of a resemblance your life has to this hero, then you might want to stick around for this one. The events that led to the popularity of Phinehas are set in the age-old exodus of Israel as recounted in the Old Testament. If you know anything about the Israeli nation of the Old Testament, then you must be familiar with their four-step cycle, namely sin, servitude, supplication, and salvation in that particular order. And what a cycle it was, because guess what? Once they got to the point of salvation, they would begin to relax and then jump into the very next temptation that knocked at their door. This is a true testament to G. Michael Hoff's quote that says, "Hard times create strong men create good times, and good times create weak men create hard times." At the core of this vicious cycle was an entrenched attachment to an old way of life characterized by long-serving slavery. What that meant was they had been slaves for so long, they had no idea how to manage freedom once they had it. They missed the point here, which was that they had left the rule of one master and entered that of another, a kinder and much more loving master, who however was also very disciplined. But once again, the Israelites missed the point. At this very moment, in the 25th chapter of the book of Numbers, the Israelites were at it again. They had already gone past the first step of the cycle, having sinned by fornicating with Midianite women. The second and third steps were already in motion. The whole nation had been subjected to affliction. In other words, they were in servitude to a plague the Lord had sent upon them. Again, the concluding part of verse 6 of the same chapter mentions that everyone was weeping at the entrance of the tabernacle. That was supplication in motion right there. However, it would be the dramatic move of Phinehas and his legendary spear that would complete the cycle and bring salvation to the Israelites. But here's the twist. It's not so much the weapon, but the one who wields it. In that regard, who was Phinehas? A super soldier who was a master at handling multiple weapons? Not at all. In fact, Phinehas was no soldier. He was the son of the high priest at the time, a man called Eleazar. Even more so, Phinehas was a man dedicated to the things of God. But who he was is not as important as what he did to turn away the anger of God from the Israelite community. Retracing our steps to the time when the faithful of the Israelite community were interceding for God to stop his punishment, whether out of blatant mockery or just blind excitement, an Israelite man and his Midianite mistress happened to make their way right in front of the weeping crowd. As if that wasn't rebellious enough, they probably laughed mockingly and ran off to their tent. In full view of the praying assembly, it's only left to the imagination how awkward that moment was. Better yet, how would you have responded if you were in that assembly? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Upon witnessing such a ghastly sight, Scripture points out that the first step Phinehas took was to break away from the assembly. The man behind this legendary spear of Israel's salvation was not swayed by the crowd's indifference or afraid to stand out. This is the first of three important lessons all believers can learn from this story. Phinehas was willing to break away from conventional ways of doing things in defense of the truth. There was nothing wrong with making supplications at the tabernacle, but once that representation of sin appeared in his focus, he was not afraid to rise to his feet, even if everyone else was still kneeling. This leads us to the second lesson, proactivity. Many believers today like to wait for instructions from their local church or Christian groups to offer service to God and man. Rarely do they take any step of their own accord to minister to those around them until they have been told to do so. Phinehas embodied the principle of proactivity like it was nobody's business. He was not a judge or a tribe leader, who, by the way, were the only ones licensed to kill the perpetrators of the sin. This son of the priest only knew of his raw, blazing passion to advance the cause of his God wherever he found himself. You see, the spear of Phinehas was more than just a weapon that ended sin and tyranny. It was a tool for salvation. This leads us to the third lesson we can learn from this incredible man. Driven by passion, he used what he had to express his devotion to God. The moment Phinehas saw the fornicators, a wave of holy anger swept over him, and he began to look around for something he could use. Now, isn't that similar? Moses saw the Red Sea and reached for his rod. David saw Goliath and reached for his sling. Phinehas saw fornicators and reached for a spear. What about you? What stirs your heart? And what tools do you possess to address it? In a moment, I'll show you how to identify your own spear. But before that, you should know how incredibly essential it is for you to break away from the assembly and find your own spear. Scripture recounts that two amazing things happened after Phinehas grabbed that spear and ran it through the culprits. First, the entire Israelite community was freed from the plague. Secondly, God was so pleased with him that he established a covenant of peace with Phinehas and his descendants. Apart from the fact that you have a whole lot to offer, which can bless many people out there, there is nothing more fulfilling than standing up for what you believe in. By doing so, you leave a legacy that honors your memory and everyone connected to you. That being said, here are a few pointers to the spears surrounding believers today. From your devices to your skill set, the internet, your connections, and the many opportunities at your disposal. All of these are metaphorical spears around you, with which you can speak up and act on behalf of the truth. The only question now is, when will you reach for it? If this video has blessed you, then in a way you could say this channel is a spear to encourage others to serve God and humanity. Better. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive more of these insights. Remain blessed, and thank you for watching.